Mate, it is like so warm in the UK right now. It's 22 degrees today. That's like 70 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that, I think. 22 degrees in Fahrenheit. Oh, 71. It is 71 degrees Fahrenheit over here and it is roasting. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Ultimate Spider-Man review. My name is Cameron and I hope you guys are enjoying these daily-ish uploads. I'm trying to get them out more regularly and so far I'm sort of sticking to a schedule pretty much. Hopefully we can keep it up, but this is the review for Ultimate Spider-Man issue 112. And as you can probably see, this is the first time we don't really have a title for the comic. Like, it's not really part of a saga. There's no like actual title for the comic. You've also got to remember in the previous issue, Mark Bagley has left the Ultimate Spider-Man comics now. So there is no more artwork from Mark Bagley. It is now replaced with Stuart Immonen's artwork, which I actually think his Spider-Man drawings and everything is really good. But what I don't like is how he draws like regular characters like Mary Jane, Peter Parker, Kitty Pryde, etc. Not quite the same because obviously we're used to Mark Bagley's comic booky look sort of thing, whereas Stuart Immonen just seems to draw characters a little bit more anime-ish, so get used to that a little bit. Anyway, speaking of the previous issue with Mark Bagley and everything, what actually happened in it? Well, it was finally the talk between Aunt May and Peter Parker about Spider-Man's secret identity, because after all, Aunt May had found out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and I liked how fast they got into the talking point of it. Like, they only went about 1.5 pages or something, and they were already talking about it, sitting down, discussing it. And I was very fond of how concerned and the sort of questions Aunt May was asking Peter Parker. She was sort of frightened for him, you know, having to see him on the news all the time, picturing him fighting bad guys and criminals and stuff, but she also was very excited for him. And I really liked that, especially because in the Ultimate Universe, Aunt May is actually cool. Like, she is not an old, like, 616 Universe Aunt May. She's more of, like, outgoing. She's the type of Aunt May that I can imagine going for a jog, like, still exercises and stuff, you know what I mean? She's just old. Is that right to say? Can I say that? Is that bad? The villain of the issue was someone called The Spot, which we actually got introduced to for the first time in the Ultimate Universe in that issue. And in the review, I expressed how well I thought the character was utilized, especially because this is the first time we're seeing this character, and if I remember, the only time we see this villain in the Ultimate Universe. So, well done to Brian Michael Bendis for that. But to round the issue off, we had Aunt May accepting Peter Parker as Spider-Man, excited to see him grow and see like what kind of character he becomes as he gets older. And I've already mentioned it, but of course, Mark Bagley leaving Ultimate Spider-Man and being replaced with Stuart Immonen. Now, if I remember, I think Mark Bagley actually went to DC Comics. I forget, unless he went to draw Fantastic Four. I'll remember after I've recorded this video, it always happens, but yeah. And obviously, Mark Bagley will be missed a lot because he is Ultimate Spider-Man. He's what made it Ultimate Spider-Man. So, as we continue this series, just let me know in the comments below what you think of Stuart Immonen's art. I mean, we only have him for another 18 issues or so, and then the art changes again. Alright guys, I've spoke longer than usual, so I think it's time we get into this review. This is Ultimate Spider-Man issue 112. Let's go. So once again, we're diving into another issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, and this one opens up with a very lovable character that we've seen many times throughout the entire Ultimate Spider-Man series, and that is Ultimate Universe's The Shocker. Also, I think it's pretty obvious by now, the artwork is different, and that is because Mark Bagley has left the Ultimate Spider-Man comics in the previous issue and has been taken over by Stuart Immonen. And I actually remembered as well, I like the artwork for Spider-Man, but I don't like his artwork on like other characters like Mary Jane and Peter Parker, etc. Compared to Mark Bagley, it's just not the same. Anyway, if you've been here since the beginning, you'll know that the Ultimate Spider-Man series uses the Shocker as more of like a throwaway villain, but he's also utilized as a little bit of a joke for Spider-Man. You know, like he's like an easy villain to take down, he keeps coming back somehow. Spider-Man has to keep sending him back to prison, and it's almost like Spider-Man and the Shocker have like this relationship that is quite light-hearted. Now, unfortunately, we don't get to see that in this issue, but we do on the other hand have Kitty Pryde join the fight in her brand new costume. Now, obviously, Kitty Pryde has left the X-Men, she's now going to Peter Parker's high school. Her and Peter Parker broke up, it was like a whole thing during the Clone Saga, and if I remember, this is like the first-ish time where we see Kitty Pryde fighting crime since those events. And you've also got to remember all that stuff with Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and Kitty Pryde with the whole relationship thing still hasn't been fully resolved. So yeah, everything is still a little bit touchy, but something that I actually find quite annoying about these comics with Kitty Pryde in is that in every single issue, Kitty Pryde always has to explain to us what her powers do. Like, we've known Kitty Pryde long enough now that when she phases through something, it like circuits everything out, it breaks everything. But for some reason she keeps explaining that, like even as she's fighting bad guys, she has to explain to them why their guns don't work anymore and stuff. It's kind of like shoving her powers down our throats, and it's quite annoying. Moving further into the issue, what do you think of the artwork on Mary Jane and Kitty Pryde and Peter Parker? I mean, the artwork from Stuart Immonen looks awesome on Spider-Man, but what do you think of it on Peter Parker, etc.? Let me know in the comments below because I would love to talk about it. Obviously, it's a huge different direction compared to Mark Bagley's artwork that we've been used to for the last 111 issues. Yeah, let me know. But moving on, as you saw in the issue right there, we had Mary Jane still visualizing that monstrous serum that she actually got injected into her during the Clone Saga. So, if I remember correctly, I don't actually think anything bad happens to her from now on to do with her turning into a monster. Regardless, I like how writer Brian Michael Bendis is still going back to that, emphasizing that Mary Jane was literally injected by Oz Formula. Obviously, as a Spider-Man fan, you really do care about Mary Jane the most, and to think that she was actually turned into a giant raging monster, that's crazy. Something else I feel the Ultimate Spider-Man series is extremely good at doing is putting certain characters into particular situations from nothing. So for example, Peter, Kitty Pryde and Mary Jane have just got this assignment to look after this baby, and that's not necessarily too bad, but what is bad is the fact that Peter and Kitty Pryde have been partnered up together. Now obviously with that whole relationship, love triangle with Kitty Pryde, Peter and Mary Jane throughout the Clone Saga, that's going to lead to some very, very awkward situations because it's forcing these characters to work together even when they aren't really on that good terms. And especially because nothing's been completely resolved yet with the whole relationship thing with Peter getting back with Mary Jane without telling Kitty Pryde, etc. It's just written into the comic really, really well. And this is something that we relate to Peter Parker as because obviously Peter has to deal with these things whilst balancing the superhero lifestyle. And that's why it's so good. In this comic as well, we also have the return of Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. Now, if you remember the last time we saw him, he was actually fighting his son Harry Osborn when Harry also turned into an orange goblin as well. You'll also probably remember that situation as the time when Spider-Man punched Nick Fury in the face straight after Harry Osborn got taken down. Now, what I like about what's unfolding on screen right now is how much Carol Danvers is underestimating the power of Norman Osborn. I mean, we know that he's witty, dangerous, and should be taken extremely seriously. But one thing I'm yet to point out is that yes, that is in fact the Carol Danvers who would later become Captain Marvel. Now obviously this is the Ultimate Universe's version, and quite clearly here I don't actually think she's got her powers yet, so for now she's just Carol Danvers. But what actually happened with her origin story was she did get her powers, but she didn't know for months and months, and so she might have already gotten her powers here, but she just doesn't know about it yet. So that's a really interesting nod to her character, especially now that we're getting a Captain Marvel movie coming out soon. It's just so good. But going back over to Peter Parker's high school, joining Peter, Mary Jane and Kitty Pryde, you can see we've got an extraordinary situation that's about to unfold on screen right now, and that is Kenny, aka Kong, telling Flash off for bullying Kitty Pryde for being a mutant. And this is really special because as we know from past issues in this series, Kong is a massive Spider-Man fan. He's been in the Spider-Man movie that was made in the comic, and so it could be that some of Spider-Man's responsibilities and actions and intentions, etc. have rubbed off on Kenny/Kong, so that now he wants to be a better person as well. Because if you remember in the beginning of the Ultimate Spider-Man series, he used to also bully Peter Parker alongside Flash as well. And so to see Kong sort of growing up a little bit and in a way protecting Kitty Pryde, that's just so awesome of him. You can tell that he's becoming more of a significant character amongst Peter Parker and Mary Jane's friend group, and this is sort of the start where you begin to like Kenny/Kong as a character. You actually care for him, and that's just great. But of course, coming up to the final few pages of this issue, you already know it guys, the Ultimate Spider-Man comics always leave us on a cliffhanger that makes you want to read the next issue so badly, and this issue is no exception, with what looks to be Norman Osborn causing havoc at the Triskelion as the comic comes to a close with a massive explosion. And that is just one of the most perfect ways to end the issue when it's involved with Norman Osborn. He's sort of seen as not really too much as a threat, not taken too seriously, and then it ends like that, and you're kind of like, yeah, they should have seen that coming. Guys, that is the end of this issue, but let's go back on camera and talk about some of the highlights on what we liked so far. Let's go. So first off, I just want to ask you guys, what did you think of Stuart Immonen's artwork in the issue? This is the first time where the entire comic has been drawn by Stuart Immonen, and obviously you guys are going to have mixed opinions. Personally, I love how he draws Spider-Man and the action and all the superhero-y stuff, but what I really don't like is how he draws Peter Parker and regular characters. it just does not look like how they're supposed to look. I mean, for the last 111 issues, we've had Ultimate Spider-Man by Mark Bagley, and the artwork was so comic booky. The characters like Peter Parker were so detailed, and like everything. Like Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and Kitty Pryde just aren't as good looking as they used to be. Like Mary Jane is meant to be this hot character, and same with Kitty Pryde as well, and now they just kind of look normal, if you get what I mean. Compared to Mark Bagley's artwork, it is a little bit sad to see that the artwork has gone to that side of things. Some of you guys will like it. Maybe it's because we're comparing it to Mark Bagley's, but how can you not compare it to Mark Bagley's? On the plus side, I really enjoyed seeing Shocker's character in the comic. I think he's a good villain that we've known throughout the entire Ultimate Spider-Man series. He keeps popping up, and it's almost like you are rooting for Shocker to win for once. Like, you don't want Spider-Man to take him down. He's sort of like a harmless villain in this series, and you actually enjoy seeing him. Also, not to mention, I feel like having Shocker in the comic is almost like putting across that this is a new chapter in the Ultimate Spider-Man series. So obviously, it's a new chapter because Mark Bagley's left the comic, but also it's a new chapter in Peter Parker's life by the feeling of it, because of course Aunt May knows that he's Spider-Man now. So it's like, yeah, it's a new chapter in Spider-Man's life, technically. Something else that sort of puts it across that this is a new chapter in the Ultimate Spider-Man series is the fact that we've got Norman Osborn returning as well, the original badass villain from the earlier issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. But I did like how dark, sinister, and mysterious Norman Osborn came across in this issue. He knows how powerful he is. And the fact that Carol Danvers and the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. aren't really taking him seriously in what he wants, etc., it ain't gonna end well. And by the end of the issue, it obviously didn't. It was also nice to see Kitty Pryde in the comic as well, superheroing up alongside Spider-Man for the first time since their breakup, technically. I still don't like it how they explain Kitty Pryde's powers almost all of the time. I mean, if you go back to Kitty Pryde fighting villains and everything all the time like criminals, she explains her powers every single time nearly, and it is just so annoying. Like, we know Kitty Pryde, we know what her powers do, we know when she phases through electronic stuff, it cuts it out. On the other hand though, I do love how Brian Michael Bendis is putting these characters into certain situations, especially in education, in school, where Peter and Kitty have to partner up for this project. And then of course you've got Mary Jane, who is Peter's girlfriend currently, is just kind of sat there like, whoa. They're kind of being jammed into this situation, and it just makes a good story element. Anyway, I think it's time we rate the issue, and honestly, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I'm going to give Stuart Immonen's artwork a chance again, even though I've read it a million times by now. Make sure you let me know in the comments below what you thought of the artwork, because I really do want to know. This is the first time where we've got the full issue in his artwork. You've seen his Spider-Man, you've seen his Peter Parker drawings. Now, let me know what you think, and we can have a conversation in the comments below, because we need to know. We need to discuss this. It's important. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want more Ultimate Spider-Man reviews, more comic reviews in general, and Spider-Man PS4 coverage, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on this video. Follow me on Twitter, obviously, for all of like the updates with the videos and Spider-Man PS4 news earlier, so I don't have to make a video. You'll just see it straight away on Twitter. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Goodbye.